cheers to you being here. Cheers to this being the kickoff of what is going to be a continual growth in your leadership development and journey. Cheers to you knowing that you're great. Cheers to all of your wonderful, fantastic opportunities. And with that, let's just start. Let's start this conversation. Oh my gosh. This is the wrong person to be sitting behind me, y'all. My best friend's back here cutting up.
Well, first and foremost, thank you to the lady of the hour.
Thank you.
I have to tell y'all, I'm really humbled to be here as a woman, as a black woman, in the presence of someone whose wife, mother, friend, family member has a career and now has written 2 books. This is a wife, this is a friend, a family member. She has a job, she's an entrepreneur. And to do all those things, but feel the conviction, really, to catalog those experiences and create a book, which I have found personally to be very enlightening and far-reaching and helpful and useful. So you've said your thank yous to your folks. I want to take you all back. You're here now experiencing the full-blown nature of the event, but there was a lot of scurrying around before you got here. And at one point, I watched Jacqueline stand in her power and say to someone, I have a vision. And I just thought, the people need to hear what that vision is. So ma'am, tell us, what is your vision for both the book as well as today?
It is not by accident that I own the trademarks Just Start. It's not by accident. It's amazing how often I travel around the country and speak at places, and afterwards someone will walk up to me and ask me for permission to start something or do something. And all the while they're sitting there telling me what they've accomplished and the challenges they had this week, and then they'll end it with, well, I really wish I could do this. And so many times we wait for permission. Like you're waiting for somebody to tell you to do something. They're waiting on you to give yourself permission to start down your leadership journey and be a stronger, more confident leader. You're waiting to start that business. You're waiting to lead that job. And the reality is, like, what are you waiting for? And so really my vision, my overall vision with all the stuff that I started, for those of you who've been on this journey with me for a long time, you know I love to start. Like I love to start. I love for you to start. Let's start something together. Like I am a starter through and through. But my wish is that you stop waiting for permission and that you fill your toolkit with the things that you need to get from where you are now to where you want to be. And so that is really, truly what my vision, my dreams, my goals are. Now, I will say, I was struggling earlier today because you all remember Opal E, my first company that I started, yeah. Opal E Event Planning. And you know, guys know I'm a little taskmaster. Like I like the feeling of doing. I have to be very careful about that. And today I had a dynamic event planning team. Jessica, where are you? Jessica, fantastic. We're working. There you go, back there. Great event planning team. Troy from Clark Bailey Media is the bomb. Mindspace is a wonderful space. Like all the pieces in place to have a dynamic team, right? But guess what I was itching to do? I was itching to get in there and do the work. Like I like that feeling of doing. And sometimes that will get us in trouble on our leadership journey, right? It's some stuff that you need to delegate out. Some stuff that you need to pass along, let your kids do. But you're still hoarding all those tasks, which means that you don't have the capacity to read another book or listen to another podcast, right? Or start a company. And so it was a struggle. It is still a struggle, the delegation process. I'm sure Tynesha, who is my colleague at the company, sometimes she's probably thinking, man, like, she's paying me to do some stuff that she's doing, right? Because I like that little feeling of doing. And so it was a struggle earlier today, but I'm happy that I caught myself and said, nope, you have accomplished, wonderful, compensated people. Let them do their jobs so you have the space and the time to be in the moment. So it was a struggle.
Yeah. So, for me, in hearing you say that and witness it, delegation is a key sort of competency to be a true leader. So most of you, many of you, know that this is actually your second book. You self-published your first book 5 years ago yesterday, right? So 5-year anniversary.
Crazy town.
Mm-hmm. So for a lot of people, writing a book is a one-and-done exercise, but now here it is, you've written 2. So why a second book?
It's so funny. First, I have a joke. Cassie, who's my good friend here, she and I just met in the restroom a moment ago, and she said I was itching to walk up to Jackie Welch and say, "What's better than one Jacqueline?" It's a Jay-Z Beyonce joke, y'all. I'll play the song later. But so the first book, Leader by Mistake, Becoming a Leader One Mistake at a Time, the anniversary for that launch event was yesterday. Yes, it was yesterday. And I wanted to really be super transparent, open, and honest in that book about the mistakes that I've made on this journey. Because a lot of times, the mistakes are really where the magic and the learning are, right? If we just share with your girlfriend, hey, I didn't negotiate properly. I took the first offer that I got. Share that with your friends, right? So I really wanted to be honest and open about the mistakes that I made, because I realized that is often how people learn the best. Towards the second book, what encouraged me to write, I knew I wanted to write a second book for a long time. I also knew that I wanted to partner with a wonderful company, which I think we'll probably talk about that a little bit later. I had gotten the mistake conversation out, but now I wanted to make sure that people had more tools in their toolkit to see how they have leadership potential right where they're at, whatever position, role, status, or title that you have. And so that really was the reason why I transitioned from book number 1 to book number 2.
I think I have your book number 3. It just came organically. I mean, there's something when you said I didn't negotiate properly for that first book. Like, I think there's probably a lot left to be written about negotiation as a skill, as a style, how not to take no. So we should talk about that.
We should.
I think that's your next book.
I think that I need to interview you, though, because I'm not sure if you all remember what I just said. She is the Chief Human Resources Officer. But let's just, a quick show of hands. Who here recalls not negotiating properly for a position in the past? I mean, it's a lot of hands up, right? And sometimes your ability to learn about what you should or shouldn't do is literally with the leader sitting right to your left or to your right. And I just want to take this moment to just say this. It's a little off subject, but very, very important. Is I know when we're trying to achieve stuff, grow, make more money, get a better job, we're trying to network up a lot, right? Like, network up a couple levels, a VP, a SVP, CEO. When sometimes the gold is sitting to your left and to your right.
That's exactly right. And
sometimes much more accessible, right? It's easy for me to call up Jeanette, call up Cassie, right? Call up Josette. Right? But sometimes, like the SVP, VP, whomever, 3 or 4 levels up, maybe I don't have access to them. And so don't forget to network to the left and the right. I just felt that in my heart to say that.
Oh, that's important.
Okay.
So you've called out me being Chief Human Resources Officer twice, so I feel compelled. So consider this to be sort of like HR Chronicles or confidential. Here's the thing that everybody at some point does, right? You get your raise, you get your performance review. How many people have received their performance review? And then you get your salary treatment purportedly as a byproduct of your performance, right? And you feel like, wait, what is this? You were expecting something different. Here's what I want you to metabolize, internalize, and practice saying in a mirror to other people so that you are confident in when you say it. I would like to know what the range of pay is for my job. And what are you looking for in order for me to earn at the high end of that range? And now here is the important thing to do after you have said all that. Stop talking. Let them sit in the discomfort of your question until they answer it to your satisfaction. What is the range of pay for this job? And what do you need to see from me in order for me to earn at the top end of that range? And then stop talking until you get an answer that meets with your satisfaction. That one's free. If anything else comes up, in the spirit of reciprocity and in support of my friend, I am happy to share more. But I do want to talk about this Wiley Publishing. Now, the Queen, and I do not mean Beyonce, because I know that can be confusing for people. I mean Her Majesty the Queen of the... We were just talking, a couple of us, about sort of the underappreciation for the culture that she was operating in, and how much change could she really drive in this like millennia-old institution. Why am I saying that in this context? You self-published your first book, and then you worked with an imprint publisher for your second book, Wiley Publishing. And so for those of you who do not know, Wiley Publishing is like the creme de la creme of business publishing imprints. This is not child's play, right? So if you would talk to us a little bit, because I'm certain there are people in the room who have a vision for themselves as writing books. Talk a little bit about the difference between writing and self-publishing versus writing and working with an imprint.
Absolutely. So a couple things. First, shout out to a couple of authors in the room. Des, where are you? Des, raise your hand. Des, author, please check him out. Have a conversation with him about his book. Thank you for being here. And Amber Cabral, who hasn't walked in the room yet, but I'm very grateful for my friendship with Amber Cabral. Amber also published with Wiley as well. So are there any other authors in the room? Oh, Frenchie, of course. Frenchie, multiple author, right? Multiple, just one book. Any other authors in the room? Okay. Couple things. First, who here has a desire, an itch, a wish to write a book? Where are my folks? Okay, so pretty good number. I self-published my first book. This book was a traditional publishing deal, okay? How can I baseline this to you? Self-publishing, you are doing all the work. But financially, sometimes that can work out a little bit better for you, right? For the traditional publishing deal, it was a partnership. There are lots of things that Wiley took on that I did not have the responsibility of doing.
Give us some examples. So.
Absolutely. Yeah. So my first book, Leader by Mistake, Becoming a Leader One Mistake at a Time, I had to corral a team together. So Thaddeus, raise your hand. Andrea Williams, raise your hand. Sharice Johnson, raise your hand. And then the only person that's missing from that core team, Andrea Williams, where are you? Yep, raise your hand. The only person missing from that core team is Christina Popelko, who was the editor. I had to call those people up and say, hey, I have this vision. I want to write this book. Let's figure out what the game plan is to make this work, right? Paid them, compensated them, brought that together. For Wiley, there was a built-in team, okay? Yes, there was an advance that is involved. Sometimes you don't always have to take the advance conversation for a whole nother day, all right? But with self-publishing, there's a lot of work that you put in yourself to make it all happen. With Wiley, they support you in lots of ways. The bookmarks that are in your book, Wiley printed those for me. The lots of things that they do. They actually do the printing themselves, right? Now, of course, it's a deal. It is a contractual deal. So there are numbers involved, right, that we will not discuss right now. But just know that in self-publishing, like you're doing a lot. When you guys ordered that book, Leader by Mistake, you know who was in the back packing those books up? Me and Mark Baker back there, okay, printing out labels, things like that. So it's, I will say, I was very clear, though, in my second book that I wanted to have the experience of a traditional publishing deal. So you know what I started doing? I started writing, literally. And remember when Clubhouse was hotter than it is right now? Remember that? I remember every week I would come onto Clubhouse with Dr. Washington, Anthony Washington. We call you midnight, wherever you are. I just saw your face and, hey, what's up? We used to get on Clubhouse and have these accountability sessions every single week. And I used to say, hey, where are you in your proposal writing journey? Do you know where I got that proposal template from? Google. I went to Google and I said, well, I know that I would like a traditional publishing deal. I don't know anybody at any publishing house, but I know what I know. And I know that it's going to have to be some words on the page. So let me start doing what I know. So I started writing a proposal. When the conversation finally happened with Wiley, the questions that they wanted to ask me were already answered because I had been working on it, right? So start where you're at. If you want to write a book, literally start writing it. I believe firmly that so many of your questions get answered in the action. If you're sitting and wishing, you're going to be wishing, all right? So start to take some action. So that is the baseline of the differences and really how I got started on writing the second book.
So I relish this whole idea of just start, which is your trademark,
yeah.
Which is probably room for another conversation.
No.
But if there's anything you're taking away from that bit, it's just start. Start writing, and then you can put the other pieces in place. You talk about tools, and there's so many rich, accessible, easy to adopt tools in the book. Which is your favorite, and how have you used it?
My favorite tool in the book, my favorite tool of my life is something that I call the life thesis. Many of you, I've referred you to that tool already. If you want your own, it's at JacquelineMBaker.com/life thesis. Let me tell you what my life thesis is. When it's all said and done, when I'm getting boxed up, ashes sprinkled around, people will say that I help them start the things that they truly want to do and move to their next level. Everything I start, everything that I will start is somehow rooted in this, even the things that don't seem like they are, right? And many years down the road, I will open a bed and breakfast. It's probably the first time that I've publicly said this out loud. Like my husband and I have talked about it, but it's going to happen in the future. And most people think, oh, like that sounds fun. Well, guess why I want to open the bed and breakfast? Because I want a place for people to come to unwind, to have the mental space and capacity to start the things that they want to do. Because sometimes you're in the wheel of life and you can never get away. You can never think, I'm going to do it tomorrow, I'm going to do it next week. And you just got to escape from your day-to-day in order to do it. And so that's what my life thesis is. Now, what I will say is because my mind is so busy, who else here has a busy mind? All right, lots of people. Okay, we need to start a busy mind club. All right? Busy mind, stand up. All right. Because I have a busy mind and I can be a little idea factory, I have to be careful about starting too many things because you won't make any progress, right? So for me, my life thesis allows me to readjust, to really make sure that I'm focused on the things that I need to be focused on, right? It makes me make real quick decisions about budgeting and finance and if I'm going to partner and if I'm not going to partner, if I'm going to work with the company or not, because I can ask the question, Jacqueline, is this in alignment with my life thesis? Is this in alignment with the leadership legacy that I want to leave? Okay. Also, quick plug, because I didn't see anybody creating their leadership legacy. These little phone booths are specifically for you to jump in there throughout our time together and write your own leadership legacy out. So use the phone booths, y'all. Okay. All right.
They have been cleaned and disinfected.
They have been cleaned and disinfected. But that is what my life thesis is, and I really encourage you to take a moment and create one for yourself. Right. Go download the form and complete it for yourself. But I think I would be remiss if I didn't ask you the question back. What is your life thesis?
I'm so glad you asked. because of the book, it really caused me. So I'm going to answer it because I wrote it down because, I'm type A, y'all. So that's what happens when you're type A. But the 4 questions I thought were so illuminating in terms of how to think about a life thesis. For those of you who haven't read the book yet but want to jot some ideas down, the questions are, what keeps positively showing up in your life? That's question number 1. Number 2, what are you really good at? Number 3, with no judgment, no fear, and no limits, who do you want to be? And number 4, what deeply moves and motivates you? And I just thought these are such great starter questions to even investigate, I'm going to pass on this earth, and what do I want to leave behind? And so, my life thesis, after all that, I will live my life leaving people and things better than when I first encountered them. So thank you, Jacqueline Baker, because you got me thinking about that.
You're welcome.
So now you've said so many things. You talked about the life thesis. You've talked about distinguishing between self-publishing, and you've talked about the difference of being with an imprint. You shared with us your own life thesis. As you were writing this book, you talk a lot about sort of elevating to your next, right? What are you currently elevating towards? When you think about you being a reader of your own work, you walk away from reading or completing this book and you're thinking, I'm next going to...
I am constantly reminding myself to embrace doing the most, because I love doing the most. Surprise. But to also remember that I have a catalog of goodness and content that I've already created that I can pull from, right? Do you find yourself sometimes just like recreating? You're just like, I already had that. I already did that, right? I'm getting another something and I don't need to. My next is more developmental versus like, here's the next thing I'm going to start. Okay. It is more reminding myself of the catalog of work that I have and how I can be impactful with the things that I've already created, right? To work smarter and not always so hard, right? Sometimes I'll go and create a presentation and I'll look back and realize, like, actually you had this presentation already created, but for some reason you felt the need to recreate one from scratch. The reason, or the thing that I want you to take away from that for yourself is to remember what you have accomplished. Remember the impact that you've made. Right? Remember the things that you've already done that you can use to exponentialize yourself to the next level. And so for me, it is more refinement. It's a little bit more refinement versus like creating something else and creating something else and creating something else.
I relish that so much. It's like sample yourself before someone else does.
Sample yourself. Sample yourself. I need that domain name. Sample yourself. Tanisha, where you at? Sampleyourself.org. Hit that for me. .net.
.diamonds. .edu. .everybody. Seriously.
Yeah.
But and there's so much richness in all the things that you're saying. I want to go back to this idea of sampling yourself, all of his content, and sort of amplify what you've said in terms of creating space.
Yes.
Right? If you are a literature fan, Virginia Woolf famously wrote an essay, A Room of One's Own. One of my favorite pictures of Maya Angelou is her in a motel room writing, and she talks about sequestering herself in a motel room just to write. So it's one thing to have an idea for a book, it's another to publish not one but two. So talk to us a little bit about the discipline. What did you have to put in place in terms of structures to commit to taking this vision and putting it on the paper?
First, what I'll say about creating the space, getting yourself in the right headspace to write, is how supportive your people around you are. And I know that this is a touchy subject because as I look around the room, I see mothers, I see hard workers, I see wives, I see fathers, and I know we are busy. Like, I am not discounting anybody's busyness, right? But when you want to elevate, when you want to grow, right, you want to live a good life, it's so important to curate resources and people around you who will uplift you, who will tell you the truth, who will say, you are messing up. I love you, right? You are messing up. And the reason why I bring that up is because I am so grateful that my husband has been so supportive throughout this journey, right? If I say, honey, like, it's about to be a tough week. Thank you, dear. Thank you, dear. Honey, it's about to be a tough week. I'll say, honey, you okay for dinner on your own? He'll say, I can do it, right? So Mark, Mark he'll say, no, I was the only child. I'm cool. Right? That's what he says. So just curating a unit of people around you, right? It doesn't have to be everybody, but just people that are willing to be your accountability partner. A lot of you in here know that you're my accountability partner in different spaces in my life. The process of writing also required me to take things from myself, right? I wanted to get something back in my life. I wanted my wine back. So I fasted from wine, right? I love a good wine, okay? Give me Amarone, Cabernet all day long, right? But I knew that I needed to almost have a catalyst to really help me get through it. I also created content how I created content. And what I mean is, let me just quickly ask this. Where are my people that like to put pen to paper? Like, in your notebooks or whatever, you are a writer, all right? Where's my digital crew? People are just like, give me a digital something. Geez, Rod, your hand went up so fast. It was almost like he had a face of disgust, like you writers. You write it with a pencil. For me, I am an audio chick all day long. I have a podcast, Just Start From Ideas to Action. There's a reason outside of me helping people start the things that they want to do. I have that podcast. I'm an audio learner. I'm a voice communicator. I communicate more through voice, and I feel more confident about it, quite frankly, than I do about writing, if I'm just being honest. And I use that, which means that I walked around the house and did voice to text. That's how I wrote half my book. Now, did I have to go back and edit out some pieces of it? Sure. But Jacqueline is going to write how Jacqueline is going to write, right? So do it in a way that works for you. And another reason why that question just hits me in my heart so strong is because that also applies on your leadership journey. Sometimes we will look at someone and say, I'm not a leader because I don't do it like them, right? I'm not a leader because I don't do it like Oprah, or I don't do it like any number of people, right? You can't do it like Oprah because you know who you're not? Oprah, right? You need to lead in your own unique way. So for me, I wrote how I wrote, right? And I encourage you to write how you write and lead how you lead.
Although there is one thing that Oprah did we should all do.
What's that? Be a billionaire?
Well, there's that.
Okay.
But also, she sees every check. No one's signing checks on Oprah's behalf. Now, that's a leadership lesson. You don't have to be all of Oprah, but you need to be Oprah in that way. So what we've heard so far is find a space, create a ritual. You shared all these things with me. I was rolling with it until you got to deprive yourself of wine. That would be a bitter book. I can't do
that. Bitter book.
But if it works for y'all, you should do it. Deprive yourself. But create some sort of at the end of it, I get this. Yeah. These are all good lessons, you all. As you think about how do you want to bring your vision to life, then what are the structures, who are the people that you've got to put around you in order to help see that thing through?
I do want to add one thing, too. Feedback. Okay? I felt incompetent. I felt incapable. I felt unsmart when I got my first proofread process done from the first book. I have never seen so much red on a piece of paper in my life. And, immediately in that first book went into a tailspin of maybe I shouldn't be doing this. Like, maybe this ain't for me. Because I was just like, oh my gosh. So I remember as clear as day, especially the first book, I remember getting an email and immediately getting a phone call from my editor, right? And she was just like, hey, you just got your first draft back. Just take your time with it, right? And it wasn't even that it was, she was just like, oh, this isn't going to work. This is terrible. She was giving me feedback, necessary feedback to create the best possible product, all right? I want you to eat that and digest that, because sometimes we don't get to where we want to get to because we are incapable of ingesting and digesting feedback. We want to hear what we want to hear, right? None of us are perfect, so hopefully somebody is giving you feedback that's filling those gaps. But feedback was critical for book number 1 and book number 2. I actually had essentially a writing coach for the second book with my partnership with Wiley. And same thing. You get it back and you're just like, whew, goodness gracious, maybe it's enough leadership books out here. Maybe I'm good, But then I remembered you all and I knew you needed another tool. So I kept going. But yeah, it is something. I also believe that by the time the second book had come along, although getting the red back is tough, I had built up this muscle of, look, feedback is good for you. Whenever I get feedback, especially if it stings, it's just like, okay, you're not perfect. This feedback is good for you. Keep going. And so feedback is a huge part of the process.
So we are becoming the same person, because that literally was my next.
Oh, look at that.
Literally, it was going to be, let's talk about feedback, because it plays such a significant role in the book and just leadership generally, the ability to take feedback. So I'd like to, if I might, offer a way to think about feedback. So you wake up in the morning. This is pre the little devices that tell you everything. But there was a time when you would get up in the morning and look outside, and if you saw clouds, what would you do? And you would prepare for the rain, right? Maybe take the umbrella or something that you didn't mind getting wet. You would make an adjustment because you got the feedback that there are clouds. And so if we can separate the feedback from us, the person, one of the things I think is very difficult, particularly when you're an artist, you are your art. So it's like somebody's attacking your art, attacking your baby. But if you can find a way, a space to think about, they're feeding back on the thing. This is not feedback about me. No one's actually writing red marks across Jacqueline. They're writing red marks on the manuscript. And so you've got to be able to protect you, the person, from you, the thing that you produce. And that helps, because I've seen people in performance reviews, and I'm like, are you going to cry? There's no crying at work. And here, next freebie, if you're crying at work, it's probably too late. And I will help you leave with your dignity intact. There's a lot of places for crying. Work is not one of them. It's not that deep, truly. Anywho, back to the book.
Yep.
You talk a lot about knowing who you are, and even the ability to write this life thesis hinges on who are you. So, and you do go through styles. It'd be great to hear you talk about the discovery process you employed to identify your style, when you flex, how you flex. Talk a little bit about style, because I want people to sort of differentiate that from being something you're not, as opposed to employing some tools to get what you want to get done.
Absolutely. I talk about the 9 different leadership styles in the book, and I encourage you to identify what your default leadership style is so that you know your baseline. It's just like taking any skills assessments, Myers-Briggs, personalysis, any of those things, right, to get a baseline of where you're at. I actually do not subscribe to being any one style consistently, okay? I subscribe to situational leadership. Sometimes I'm going to have to be like this. Sometimes I'm not. Sometimes I'm going to absolutely have to be autocratic. Hey, we're in crisis. There's something that needs to get done. Here are the steps. Let's roll. Sometimes I'm going to be democratic. Like, what do you think? How do you think, right? When I was producing events, I was autocratic through and through, right? It needed to get done. This ring bearer needed to get down the aisle. Let's roll, right? Here's what we're going to do, all right? But sometimes we get in trouble because we're saying, oh no, I'm a autocratic leader and that's who I am, right? Well, is who you're being beneficial to who you want to be, right? Sometimes we're like, oh no, this is me. I'm this, right? I'm being my most authentic self if I act just like this. But you want that over there. You're going to have to adjust a little bit, right? So I don't necessarily subscribe to just always being one style or the other. I subscribe to looking at my leadership blueprints, which is a tool that's in the book as well. What is the situation? What do I need to employ to get that accomplished? All right. And the other thing, too, is when I give myself permission to do that, and I hope you give yourself permission to do that as well, it's easier for me to give other people the opportunity to lead, right? It's easy for me to not always be out front. Because sometimes, like, leadership is actually most impactful when you are following, right, and not leading. You have to learn how to be a follower and a leader. And by employing different styles and understanding when you can interject and cool out, be the face of everything and not, I think that you're able also to lead other people effectively as well.
So if you haven't read the book, just so you have something to marinate in, because some of you will want to do the thesis exercise, the styles that Jacqueline has identified and curated here are affiliative, autocratic, coaching, democratic, laissez-faire, pace-setting, servant, transactional, and transformational. So again, those are the styles, and it should figure prominently into your life thesis.
Absolutely.
So one of the many things that really struck me about the book is how accessible it is. It was like having a conversation with you as opposed to reading something that was a little bit more, sort of dogmatic and high-minded. It was like real language, real experiences. And I was just struck with how completely transparent you were throughout the book. Talk to us a little bit about what it was like putting your, not best moments on display to be read forever. It's in a book.
Writing it wasn't hard. Going back and reading it, I was like, ooh, I just told them I got a 1.9 GPA in one semester. That's sort of embarrassing to say, right? Like, writing it, I was just like, okay, these are the facts. But looking back, I was like, oh, man, geez, I went to Cass Tech. What's happening here, right? I believe that people connect better to real life experiences, honesty, right? And my goal was for everyone to pick up this book and see their leadership potential. What I am actually really excited about, and Jackie, you brought this up when we were just getting started, is as I look across the room, I see a lot of different types of people. I see people dressed the way they wanted to dress, which I said in the email. And I wanted people to come literally as you were, because you are a leader as you are, right? That was the whole point of me saying, just come as you are. Because, of course, I'm going to wear a sparkly dress. This is what I do, right? You know this. But I wanted you to feel comfortable and know that I don't care if you have on gym shoes, if you have on a full suit, you are a leader where you're at and with what you have within you. For me, I knew that telling those personal stories that were a little stingy sometimes to go back and read, those are going to connect way more than me saying, I have 2 trademarks, I have 2 degrees, I have a podcast. That's cool, and I'm very proud of all the things that I've done. But hey, here's some stuff that I'm embarrassed about, here's what I learned from it, and here's how you have the opportunity to be a stronger leader, right? By looking at the mistake or the issue or the challenge that I had and maybe not going down that path. And so it was a little stingy, to be honest with you, reading back through it. But I think that the world, I think that you all, I think that other leaders will be better for it.
The 1.9 is my favorite.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, and I'll tell you why. I'm 52. There are people walking around thinking I didn't go to college. Because after a certain age, when people are like, oh, where'd you go to school? I'm like, oh, you mean college? I didn't go there. What are you qualifying me for? I'm here in the room with you, and I always say, well, it seems to have worked out because I'm in the room where you find people, so what difference does it make?
Yeah.
So I love that story because no one moment, right? So if you go to Atlanta and say Jackie Welch, people are like, she didn't go to college, and just keep it going. Don't correct them. Just keep it going. So you talk a lot too about self-sabotage.
Yeah.
Which is just, for those of us who are Christian, there's that one passage that everybody likes, no weapon formed against you. And I've heard it paraphrased, make sure you're not the weapon formed against yourself, causing you not to prosper. So self-sabotage is a thing. So talk more about self-sabotage, how it shows up and how it has the potential to derail you from your leadership.
Self-sabotage is something that I am consistently managing, if I'm just being honest with you. I'm super honest about anxiety and the fact that I'm always managing anxiety. Like I was diagnosed with anxiety when I was 19, took medicine for a little while, moved on from that. But sometimes, anxiety, depression, many different things that we're dealing with position us to not think highly of ourselves, to not just say thank you when someone says something to you. Like imagine your boss walks up to you and say, great job on that report. Some of us will say, oh, it's no big deal. It only took me 5 minutes. The answer is, you're welcome.
And I want to interrupt you. That what you're saying there is it's called performance punishment. Because if your boss now is left with the impression, oh, it only takes Jacqueline 5 minutes, you're going to end up with a bunch of 5-minute projects.
Yeah.
So think about how that works against you.
Absolutely. Thank you is a complete sentence. Or, you're welcome, that's it, right? For me, I am grateful for people like Jackie. I'm grateful for my friend, crew circle, my 3 really good girlfriends that are right behind me, because they are reminding me of some of my magic, right? They will remind me and say, I may say, hey, I did this thing. I got this whatever. I got this new contract. And they're like, oh my gosh, that is a big deal. And for me, sometimes I can be on autopilot. Anybody else on autopilot? You're just like, it's no big deal, right? I'm just moving right on from this. And when we don't stop, right, and revel in our wins and be excited about the things that we've accomplished, like, what's the point? Like, what is the point of doing all this stuff if we can't stop and live in it for a second? And so sometimes self-sabotage shows up in the form of you not living in your moment, right? You also not recognizing that you could be encouraging other people, right, to belittle your work as well, sometimes a manager, colleague, spouse, all those things. I encourage a lot of reflection. I used to have this planner called the Panda Planner. Have you all ever heard of the Panda Planner before? All right. So I remember the story. Cassie and I, actually for the first book launch, I was over Cassie's house. She was hosting an event for me. And Cassie had the Panda Planner. And I had a Passion Planner. And I was like, this Passion Planner is too much. Like, it's just all these prompts. Like, let's just get straight to it. And Cassie said, well, I have this Panda Planner. And so we swapped. I used the Panda Planner for a while until my girlfriend came out with her planner, right, called the Unplanned Planner from Paisley. I know she was back there like, is she talking about this on, she ain't talking about, you were wondering? Andrea owns a company called Paisley Paper Company. She also is responsible for creating just about all my brands in partnership with Sharice. And hey. So all the emblems that you see around here with J and B on it, like Sharice and Andrea, that's thank you, ladies. So we swap planners. And the thing that I loved about the Panda Planner, but don't buy that, buy the Unplanned Planner from Andrea, Paisley Paper Company, is that it required you to answer 2 questions as a part of your day. And I still do this to this day, all right? It makes you ask the question, what are you most looking forward to today to kick off your day? And then to close out, it's what are you proud of? What did you accomplish? For someone like me whose mind moves really fast, these 2 simple questions are game changers in my life, right? Because every day I actually answer the same question in the same way. Jacqueline, what are you grateful for? Right? What are you most looking forward to? Actually answer the question, what are you grateful for first? That answer is always, I am grateful that I woke up. Baseline. There are some people that didn't wake up today, y'all. Like, when I can level set my mind there, like, whew, I got a head start. Like, I'm out here doing this again, this thing called life. And so that gets my mind together. The end of day, like, what did you accomplish? What are you most proud of? Is important because sometimes you don't feel great about yourself. You could be pretty, skin's popping, you making some money, your life's happy, but you wake up and you're just like, I'm not feeling it today, and I can't even put my finger on what it is. And when that happens, I can sometimes go into a self-sabotage wheel of, am I good enough? Do I have enough? Am I ready? Am I loved enough? And you know what I can do? Go back to those questions and see the wins. Because sometimes you got to remind yourself of it, right? And so self-sabotage, I often really triage that by reflection, looking back on those questions, and I talk to myself quite a bit. Like, I'm happy my husband doesn't think I'm crazy, because when I feel like anxiety or something flaring up, I will say to myself, Jacqueline, you're okay, you're okay. Like, I literally say that, two statements back together. Jacqueline, you're okay, you're okay. Take a breath, and then I roll. Yeah, but self-sabotage will absolutely get you in trouble if you don't mind it and you're not careful of it.
Meanwhile, I say, Jacqueline, it's not okay, but it's not going to kill you.
It's not okay, but it's not going to kill you.
It's not going to kill you.
Yeah.
Like, just pull it. Okay, this is an elevated response. Just pull it down a couple of degrees. It's going to be fine.
And to accept that, especially as you're giving yourself permission to be a stronger leader, I'm asking you in this book to be uncomfortable. I'm asking you to speak up, right? All those things. That being nervous about trying to be a stronger leader or going on your journey, it's nothing wrong with being nervous.
That's it.
It's nothing wrong with being uncomfortable, right? It's nothing wrong with a bit of fear. You haven't done whatever it is before. Was I fearful throughout this book? There was some fear, right? I told a couple of my friends, like, hey, every now and then I'm going to need to call you, and I just need to have a judgment-free zone of venting, right? I just need you to just listen to me. If it requires a response, respond. If it doesn't, just say, okay, I heard you, right, and move on. And so I'm very just honest about myself in that regard, because it's super, super helpful.
So many gems. There are 4 that come to mind that you say in the book repeatedly that have now become part of my talk track. Yeah. One is give yourself permission.
Give yourself permission.
That is, to me, just one of the most delicious things. You can do hard things.
Oh, you can do hard things, y'all. We can do everything's not going to be easy.
It's
but
hard.
Man, it's worth it.
Right.
You can do hard things.
Right. If it were easy, everybody would be doing it.
Yeah,
So
if it were
give
easy,
yourself permission. You can do hard things. No is an answer.
No is an answer.
It's a complete sentence. And just say thank you.
Or no, thank you is a complete sentence. Scarlett, we'll be happy
5.
about that.
Yep, no thank you and no thank you.
No.
So we'll keep that as the triage, the 3 things. So I know we're running on time. So my last question for you, if there's one thing that you want people to walk away from this moment with, what would that one thing be?
Ooh. There are lots of things. It is fascinating how much you can accomplish once you just start moving. Like, once you literally just put one foot in front of the other every single day. I know in the beginning I gave some thanks, and I think that it is very appropriate to circle back to that, because there are some dynamic folks in the room. I especially want to shout out my family. Right? My family, my sisters, both of my sisters are here. My nieces are here. My nephew-in-law is here. Of course, my husband is here. My aunt, who's like my mom, is here. My cousins, Derek and Raj, where are you, are here. And I'm especially calling them out because literally they're fresh off a plane coming from Detroit. My Uncle Chris is here. So many of my family is here. I'm looking around to make sure I didn't forget anybody because it's important. Samantha, my cousin is here. And the reason why I bring that up is because, ironically, 1 year ago today, my father passed away. And it was, unexpected. And as I reflect on that, I think about what has been done in this past year. Like, a lot has happened in this past year. I'm sure a lot has happened for you all as well. And I'm constantly reminded of how important it is for you to literally start moving in the direction of the things that you want to do, right? Of course, this book is about leadership. Of course, I want you to pick it up. I want you to talk about leadership. But I really want it to be a catalyst for you giving yourself permission to not only be a stronger leader, but to start and move towards doing the things that you want to do, right? I could not have imagined that this would be my life in any way. Like, I just could not have forecasted any of this. And the reason why this is my life is because of movement. I mean, of course, a lot of support from people, favor, like all those things. But I'm not the smartest person that you know. I am not the wealthiest person that you know. I am not the most connected person that you know, but you know what I will do? I will put in that work. I'm going to take some action, right? I'm going to do. And I encourage you to do the same thing. Whatever it is that you're waiting on, whatever it is that you just like, oh, one day I'm going to do that. I'm going to start that thing, right? I'm going to become a better public speaker. First of all, hit me up. I'll help you out, right? I'm going to do this. I'm thinking about it. I'm wishing. I'm dreaming. You need to start taking action. I really literally want you to just start, right? And use this book as a catalyst to start the things that you want to do and elevate to your next level. So that is my wish. That is what I'm going to hold you accountable for, although none of you asked, but you came to my party, so drinking this drink, eating this food, I want to know what you're doing, right? I want you to really start moving towards the things that you want to do. This is not a dress rehearsal, guys. Like, this is it. Like, there is no, that we know of, like, you're not coming back as a mosquito. Like, you need to move on this, right? So that is my wish, that we take some action. Yeah, thank you for that question.
Oh, you're welcome. So I would like everyone to trust me and recite after me. I promise you're not signing away anything. It's just a pledge in keeping with what Jacqueline has shared with us today. So today, and every day, I am a leader. And I'm ready to take the journey. To discover, define, and refine.
And refine.
My leader within.
My leader within. Thank you, guys.
Thank y'all.